ready?
Yeah, sure. Let's start till everybody else joins in.
Looks like it.
Can you hear me?
So, yes, I can hear you perfectly well. Let me just prop up my screen. We've created a couple of slides for you. So maybe with that, we can start by a couple of introductions and then take it from there.
Sure, just give me 1 second and let's start with the formal here. All right, then. Hello, everyone. I'm Yasmin Taj, editor for the Economic Times International, HR and CIO, and head branded content for the Economic Times. And with great pleasure, I welcome you all to our exclusive webinar on a very compelling and critical topic, well-being across borders. What should expats do? In an increasingly global world, companies continue to see the benefits of sending employees abroad on expat placements. While this can be rewarding and profitable and a good experience for both the individual and the organization, it can also come with unique challenges that can impact an expatriate's overall well-being. In order to ensure the success and satisfaction of expat employees, companies must take a proactive role in supporting their financial, physical, and of course, mental health. And for this, I'm very, very excited to welcome Melis Ablotrio, founder and CEO for Wellbees, who will help us decode how companies can better support expat well-being in these crucial times. Melis, who's the founder and partner at Wellbees, a digital corporate well-being solutions, helps companies optimize the well-being of their employees. Her goal in life is to create a future where people can realize their potential by being caring to each other. Hi, Melis. Thank you so much for joining us. It's such a pleasure to have you.
Hi, Yasmin, and it's a great pleasure to have you here with me as well. As you said, it's a huge topic. We're talking about millions of people here who are away from their homes, and well-being for this category seems to be seems to have its own unique challenges. So let's see what you're going to ask me, and I have a couple of slides ready here.
Yes.
See if some of them match one another.
Absolutely. And before we start, Melis, I'd like to tell all the people who joined us and who are viewing this webinar, if you have any questions for Melis, do post them in the Q&A tab here or in the chat section. We'll try and take the questions as we go along with the discussion and answer as many questions as we can. So once again, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. I'm looking forward to a superb conversation with Melis in understanding what it takes to create a better experience and better well-being for your expat employees. So without further ado, Melis, I'd like to pop my first question to kickstart this webinar. And my question to you, yes, what according to you are some of the most common triggers at work or workplaces that can impact an expat employee's well-being?
Right. So when we're talking about well-being, Yasmin, we're talking about the 8 different pillars, right? We're talking about the spiritual, the mental, the financial, the physical, the emotional, the environmental. So we're talking about this whole array of things, when we were talking about well-being these days, right? Back in the 1970s, this was just all about not being sick. And now it's so much more comprehensive, right? We're talking about the whole well-being of a person when we're talking about the well-being of a person. So we have done a lot of digging, and as you know, we're an employee well-being organization. We work with over 100 different companies in 100 different countries in 10 languages. We touch the lives of 250,000 employees every single day. So we have a lot of data in hand. So we looked at that data. We also looked at the data of other organizations to come up with several different, numbers for you. So we also wanted to make sure that this is not something that you can find online. So we made sure that this has a lot of information on expat well-being that you can't find online. So let's start. So as you said, I'm the founder of Wellbees. Wellbees is working with around organizations around the world. We're also, I want to come back to this later on. I want to see how everybody's feeling today. But before I get into that, let me start by framing what we're talking about here. So when we're talking about expat well-being, we're talking about, yes, the 8 pillars stand, but these are more the areas that stand out, right? We're talking about diet and fitness because those behaviors change, right? When you are in a different country, in a different setting. We're talking about mental health because you're faced with a lot of change. We're talking about mindfulness, spirituality, because you might not necessarily find the same availability in this new country that you're in. Then we're talking about safety and security. You might not necessarily be seeing the same safety and security that you're seeing in this new country compared to the other country that you came from. Family and friends, huge issue in all of the countries that we looked at. Weather and climate, huge issue in all of the in all of the expats that we looked at. We're also looking at culture here. We're looking. Sorry.
Melis, are you there?
Yes, of course. When it rains and pours, like
Yeah.
I have someone who's with me at home, but door rang, phone rang, and the baby rang at the same time, of course, as the way it always happens, when it rains, it pours. All right. So we were talking about weather and climate. We're also talking about culture, quality of life, and health here, because obviously, like, these change across borders, and expats find that like these 9 areas are extremely crucial when it comes to expats' well-being. And we also wanted to see what the most common expat problems are, and we saw that most of the time these are related to either social well-being or financial well-being, right? So this is across the board. Like, we're not even talking about the UAE at the moment. We're just talking about across the globe in 170 different countries here. So most of the time, as you can see from this list of top 10, most of these are related to social well-being. Like, number 1 is missing friends, family, social well-being. Adjusting to work environment, again, social well-being. No professional network, social well-being. Trouble making friends, social well-being. Culture shock, social well-being. And then you're also, like, language barrier could even fit into that. So also about future finances, number 2, 3, and number 6, they're all about financial well-being, right? So this is right, there are 9 different subjects, but the most important ones when we look from a well-being lens are these 2, the social and the financial well-being sides. So what's happening in the UAE then? So the UAE has been doing great in terms of well-being over the past years, I would say. Like, compared to the last 2 years, UAE has been adding to the personal well-being of its inhabitants, actually, which is a fantastic news. Compared to the globe, actually, you will find higher well-being here compared to all of the other countries that we're looking at. But that's a big but. Of course, everything comes with some sidekick, and the sidekick here is in the UAE. We're finding that people are unable to switch off. They always feel always on, and the stress levels in the UAE are very high. It's Jasmine, like, I even had like a conversation with CHROs in the region, and like I'm talking about top level people here, like, we looked at each other, we talked about this, and it's just something they said, like, they admitted, like, this is something that we come to own and accept, unfortunately. So as an employer, if you're fighting this, you are truly becoming overnight a preferred employer, by the way, because everybody comes to the UAE to earn more, to work here, your own work visas, right? Like, but when you come to the UAE, you come with this acceptance that this is going to be the way it is, But if you change that as an employer, it really makes a difference, right? This is another study that I want to bring up here. This is not just our data. This is not just the data we took from the UAE. When you look at the UAE from other angles, you will see that people are feeling they're always on, again, in this survey that I'm propped up for you. Also on the personal finance index, you're seeing that people are feeling left out. So again, here you're seeing that the occupational well-being side, the financial well-being side is lacking here, right? So maybe like coming to a different discussion here, Jasmine, like, why are people even making that like companies are even making that investment into their people, right? And I'm not just talking about expats here. I'm talking about overall. Like this has become a $60 billion industry, employee well-being. Why are they making this investment? There are three reasons. One, employees' priorities have shifted. Even in countries like the UAE, people's focus have shifted. Yes, I come here to work and earn a fair share of financial wealth here, but I really care about my well-being. Like, what are you going to do about that? That's one of the questions that people keep asking. Number two, people are feeling worse, unfortunately, when compared to like the past 15 years. People have been feeling worse compared to the past years, unfortunately. So this is the same case with expats as well. And it needs to be addressed. And number three is Gen Z actually scores worst when it comes to well-being. And that's another reason employers actually address this problem by making an investment into this. So let's just start the conversation with this, Jasmine, and see if this brings up any questions for you when it comes to expat well-being.
Such great data points, Melissa. I must say, it's interesting how we look at expats and we think, wow, what a beautiful life they must be leading. But look at the kind of work-life
Yes.
balance they're struggling for, right? Emotional
Yeah.
balance. They're living in a different country. The kind of connections, the kind of cultural differences. On top of that, the kind
Yeah.
of work practice where you're always on, as you very rightly said. Some great numbers shared by you. So thanks for sharing that, Melissa. I'd like to ask you another question around
Sure.
organizations. Yeah. So, a lot of organizations, and you said that the employee well-being industry has become, it's more than $60 billion today. So
Yeah.
this is helping a lot of organizations craft successful well-being strategies, and well-being is one of them. So in your conversation, what are the most common challenges that you have faced while crafting a well-being program or initiative, especially for the expat workforce?
See, the problem is usually, Jasmine, is that like you're seeing a lot of the companies create well-being is such a specialized field to begin with. You're an HR professional. When you go back to the HR tech analyst, Josh Burson, for example, did you know that there are 93 different competencies that are expected from an HR professional today? That's just simply crazy, you know? And you're also expected to be extremely knowledgeable and well-versed in organizational behavior change, as well as employee well-being. That's just absurd, right? Like, because this is a field, it's very difficult to, grasp the whole thing. I would say to create a fitting well-being strategy in place. But having said that, there are some best practices people can follow to make sure that they're spending the money in the right way possible. So what are these? Like I put a couple of them together to give an idea so that we can discuss them. So let's start with these. So Jasmine, we made a huge survey with PwC in 5 different countries around the region, covering MENA and Europe and the US. And we looked at what creates an employee well-being prone company. And we've seen that the number one indicator of employee well-being is psychological safety. Let's remember what psychological safety was. Psychological safety is being able to tell what you think about work without fearing the consequences. So that's, I would say, I wouldn't say, like, looking at our numbers from this PwC survey, Jasmine, unfortunately, MENA scores the worst across all of the regions we did this survey in terms of psychological safety. So that's one thing that we can work on before even setting up a well-being practice in place, because this is a huge, like, think of this as the bowl of the well-being salad that you're going to prepare. If the bowl is not sturdy enough to protect that, to support that, it's simply not going to be holding that salad that you're doing it for, right? So thinking about the salad again, where can you start preparing that salad? You can start with measuring. Most of the time, Jasmine, I'm seeing that like organizations are so bombarded with well-being vendors, right? Like, we're getting a million emails from all over the place and we don't know where to begin. We just like pick one and just go ahead. But I would really encourage all of the HR professionals out there just to start by measuring our own well-being. And there's so many tools to do that. You can do it through managers, weekly check-ins. You can do it. Let's not wait for engagement surveys because they're usually annually or quarterly. Let's do maybe small surveys where we're asking people how they're feeling, what they need in terms of well-being, because like you can't really measure, you can't really manage what you're not measuring, right? So I would say, Jasmine, those are the two things that I would do before starting a well-being project in place. And what really works in terms of well-being, there are a couple of things that really work in the region, in MENA region, I would say. So we spoke about psychological safety. We need to also address inclusive management. Inclusive management means DEI, right? I'm sure you're doing a lot of webinars on this, Jasmine, like on diversity, inclusion, equity. Yes, this is another side that MENA, in our survey with PwC, scored in terms of like this has been seen as an improvement area in the survey that we have done. So inclusive management, what does it even mean? You know, it means looking at employees and knowing that they will have different well-being needs, right? Like a new mom will have different well-being needs compared to a field worker who's sending money to their hometown, right? So it's going to be very different. So from our data, Jasmine, we know that, for example, people who are younger than 35, they love to have expert support one-on-one, like with psychologists, dietitians, personal trainers, they love it. People between the ages of 35 and 45, on the other hand, they love like content, you know, they love to read like something that will improve their well-being on a personal level. They love meditations, like they like to work on their well-being on their own. And then those people who are the age of over the age of 45, they like to socialize through well-being, meaning like they love to participate in challenges, clubs, events. They like to promote well-being inside organizations. So these are just like appetizers, of course. There's so much more to say about this, but these are nibbles people can start thinking about when they're planning for their own well-being. So with that, let me just stop here for a little bit and see what other question you have so we can address it together.
Yeah, it's very interesting point where you said that it starts from checking in and then starts from understanding the different stages of life that people are, the age groups, the generations. Everybody needs to be, you know, taken care of in a different manner here. So it has to be customized, personalized, and you start by first checking in and making yourself available for feedback. I'm sorry. And also making your management, your leadership more inclusive. Very important point. What does inclusivity mean to you? So another question that comes to my mind, Melis, is about the role of the manager. So on a day-to-day basis, every employee is most closely working with the manager in their workplace, right? So what role can a manager play here when it comes to taking care of the well-being of the expat employee at the workplace?
I mean, I have so many slides about that as well. It's one of those areas that I'm extremely passionate about. So as you said, impact, like the manager's impact on the employees, huge, Jasmine, when we're thinking about it. So like compared to people's doctors or therapists, the impact that the manager has is 50% higher. You know, the doctor has 51% and therapist has 41% influence on your employees, whereas their managers has 69% influence on people's well-being. That's on par with their partner. That's really crazy. But unfortunately, I know. But when you look at the data, managers are not feeling caught at the moment. When you look at this data, for example, from Deloitte, you will see that like people are feeling, the C-level is, for example, feeling overwhelmed, lonely, depressed, more than their teams, and they're almost on par with the exhaustion level and the stress level of their teams. And when you look at our data, we have this data from 250,000 employees. When you compare managers to non-managers, the past 3 years, you will be seeing that the dark green line is the is the line of the managers, and the non-managers are yellow line. You will see that managers over and over the past 3 years have been feeling worse than their non-manager counterparts. Same thing with sleep, they're losing sleep, and it's very much interrelated, right? Sleep creates well-being creates good sleep. So these are places where we're lacking, and where it becomes even more important is underlining this, like managers have a symbiotic relationships with their teams, meaning the way a manager feels is the dark green line here, and the way their teams feel is the white line here. And you will see that there's only 5% difference between how a manager feels and how their teams feel. So combining all of this data together, you will see that it's so important to have your manager's well-being in check, and to make sure that your managers support your well-being initiatives in place, I would say. So that's the way I can maybe tackle this question for now.
That's very interesting. So another question: if the manager himself or herself is so under pressure, how do you expect them to take care of the expats who are also under pressure?
That's such a good question.
How do we take care of that? I mean, who plays a role here then? Do we get external, partners to help? There has to be some way out, right?
Amazing. That's such a good question, and that's the elephant in the room, to be honest with you. And then I think there's the burnout question doesn't get addressed as much as it should, and it comes back to the safety, the psychological safety part. Like if you're working incredible hours and you feel like that's a given in the region, and you can't simply escape that, and you feel like you can't talk about it because there's no psychological safety at work, then there's no way about solving this problem, right? So how do you create psychological safety in the workplace then, to make sure that managers can actually openly talk about this? Number one, very interestingly, Jasmine, psychological safety is created through activities or time that you spend with people outside work. We don't know why that's the case, but that's the case. Those organizations that spend time with each other outside work have the most psychological safety in place. And I'm not talking about picnics here, not everybody has the money or the time to organize those picnics, or not everybody simply has the time to attend those picnics, I'm talking about small changes here that could make all of the difference here. I'm talking about for example, one of the companies that we work with, that it created the childhood photos challenge on the app, and simply everybody posted their childhood photos, and everybody liked each other's photos. And I will never forget the feedback that we got from the team saying, my manager was a human once upon a time. So that was the feedback that was given. It doesn't have to be expensive, it doesn't have to be time consuming, whatever it is that you're doing. It could be simply a challenge, a step challenge that you're participating in, to create that psychological safety, to be able to crack and start talking about this in the first place. And then number two is, I don't have a slide for that, it's vulnerability. If you have someone from the management team to come and talk explicitly, talk about this, and leaders in the UAE do that a lot, right? Like the government leaders, they underline and talk about well-being all the time, right? So if managers and organizations can mirror that, that will be a great way forward, because if there aren't any examples, people are simply not going to share it because they're going to be scared for their work, right? So
yeah, interestingly, it boils down to psychological safety. What kind of a culture are you building at the workplace to allow people to be themselves, to express themselves? That would really does start with that. It's a great point, Melis. Thank you so much for sharing. Also, Melis, can you share some best use case examples from Wellbees, of your experience with Wellbees in tailoring well-being programs and strategies for your expat employees, and especially those which have had some great impact, maximum impact?
Yes. So, right. Do you remember in the beginning of this, talk, I said globally, expats share two common problems, right, when it comes to well-being: social well-being and financial well-being. I'll give you examples from those two. But then there are various other best practices we can always talk about, like, because like all companies are different, right, Jasmine? Like if you were talking about like a company like DP World, that where there are 80% of the population as field workers, that's a completely different set of let's say, compared to IDEMIA, a company with software developers only. So it will change from company to company, but I'll give you two best practices here related to those two biggest problems. So one of them is social well-being. When we look at our data in the UAE, we see that like people make the most friends on the app compared to all of the other regions that we have. Non-UAE regions, countries have an average friend count of 14 compared to 20 in the UAE. That's almost 50% higher than the average. And why is that the case? And I'll give you one quote. One of the executives in one of the companies that we work with, she came forward and once said, Netflix is my best friend in the region. And that's so like, I find that so deep, you know, and I think that's one thing that most expats share in the region. And we know that socializing actually really works. Like we're these like bunch of nationalities pulled together, working together. Yes, we work well together, but are we feeling well or are we lonely? And when you look at the numbers, you will see that those people who socialize with one another tend to feel much better compared to the people who are not socializing. And maybe I'll give you one example here. And it's just going to be a very, very simple example here. And that's going to be a step challenge example. So there was this one software company that we're still working with, by the way. And we looked at their data, annual data, and we saw that there were two spikes that had like over 20% mood increase. And we were like, what the hell happened then? We realized the CEO of the organization created two different challenges in those two different occasions and then invited everybody to join. I mean, I'm not talking about socializing in the workplace, socializing or like forced socializing people. I'm talking about like the CEO coming up here and doing this like online challenge. I can give you so many other examples, like we're working with a healthcare company in the region, 3,000 employees. The CEO decided every Friday he's going to walk from now on. He was so inspired by the Wellbees Challenge. And he started that walk. And now 250 people join him whenever he goes out to walk around the building that they have in Abu Dhabi. I love this. It doesn't have to be costly. It doesn't have to be HR led. It can come from departments, and this really changes things, right? Like social well-being in the region simply works when it comes to well-being. The final example I want to give is from Emma Davies. Emma is the CHRO of Masafi, or was until last Friday. But she's a fantastic individual, and I will give her always give her example when I'm talking about the financial well-being aspect of things. So when it comes to financial well-being, there are four different areas, right? You can look at planning, you can look at saving, you can look at spending, and you can look at borrowing, right? So I would say you have to sit down and start looking at what the problem is, right, in the workplace. Jasmine, this is coming back to the thing that I said in the beginning, right? You have to measure to understand what's happening. So exactly what Emma did. Emma started asking people, what do you need in terms of financial well-being? I mean, compensation is one thing that we look in the region, as you've seen. People are not super happy about their compensation. Yes. But she said this, look, I don't have a way to move the needle in your compensation at the moment. But what I can do is financial well-being is something full, complete. It doesn't only come in a monetary form. I can solve other financial worries for you. Can you tell me what financial worries you have, and we'll work backwards from them? And Jasmine, here's what she found. Like she found that 80% of her population are working in the water production. And she found that these people in the middle of COVID were going to a bank, waiting there in line for half a day, missing work for half a day, and then like were really scared of contracting COVID. They came back to they went inside the bank, paid a lot of commission to send money to their homes once a month after the paycheck was sent. Here's what she did. She actually went to all of the banks she works with. She told them, plain and square, this is what I need. Can you deliver? And one of them delivered, and that one bank set up an ATM inside their office building. That one, it's simple, right?
Simple.
She didn't even pay for it. And then she had one clerk coming up to the office 2 days after the paycheck was paid for issues that couldn't be solved with the ATM. And then she also managed to get the commissions down, and voila, she actually had such a boost in engagement and well-being after this, right? And this again comes back to this, right? Unfortunately, our happiness, our well-being does not increase after a while with the increasing amount of our compensation. That's why we need to look at it from a financial well-being perspective to see what else we can solve there. So those are the two best practices I can maybe mention when it comes to our clients' best practices.
Thanks, Mel. It's very interesting to see how social well-being and financial well-being together, if you take care of these two aspects, how you can impact the overall well-being of your employees, especially your expat employees. As you said, they are lonely. They are always on the on mode. They are always working. They are living in a different country. Everything is different for them. So first is managing that social aspect of their lives. How better can they integrate with the culture? How better can you help them socialize, meet people, go out maybe? And secondly, how better can you make their lives, the day-to-day lives better by taking care of the financial burdens that they have? While you said, yes, with compensation is a challenge there, but if you take care of these peripheries, I feel it really does impact the overall well-being of the employees. So the very great examples, I'm sure our audience here listening in today will take care and, try and implement some of these back home also. So moving on to one final question, Melis, that I have for you today is, according to you, what kind of impact should organizations expect from their well-being programs or initiatives? Are there any, as you said, it has to be measured until then you don't know whether it's working or not. So what metrics can be used to, figure out what's working or what's not?
So I'm a math major and I can talk about this for about 2 months without stop. But I will show you two use cases to give a good example here. So this is our dashboard, right? Our dashboard is we put together 100 different data sources. We never show personal data. We always show aggregated data, but we make sure that well-being can be presented in numbers, right? And this way, HR solves half of the puzzle actually, because it's so difficult to create a dedicated well-being budget if you don't have the numbers, right? But if you have the numbers, it's so much easier to create these. Also, it's so much easier to create your ESG reporting, but we're not going to go into that. But here's what we do. So, for example, an HR professional can come here and see what the mood of their employees is. Click on the mood and see, for example, the average mood of the employees in this organization is low. It's 3.52 out of 5. And see suggestions based off of AI. And in this case, it's, for example, telling this HR professional to open up a survey. And then this way, the HR professional doesn't have to think of what to do. The AI tells him or them about the next possible steps that they can do. This is one thing that I can show as a use case here. Maybe just to give you another maybe area that can be slightly be made also at home. The salad can be made home without ordering in from Wellbees, Here are the things that we track. We track how people are feeling, how people are sleeping, and the average step count of employees. And we also look at the AI sentiment analysis. So these 4 things can be done also without Wellbees. If like you want to do the salad at home. How can you do that? It's easy actually. Like the feel and sleep you can do with self-reported surveys. Again, as I said, through managers check-ins, you can simply ask people, you can do focus groups. These are two very important metrics that will give you a great idea about how your employees are feeling and how your well-being initiative should be directed. The average number of steps, why is that so important? Because physical well-being has a domino effect on everything else in your life in terms of well-being. So you can also do this through a challenge, right? Like we have, for example, what's called a Well-Bees Challenge that's starting on 1st of November. People can join something like that with the fraction of a cost that would normally cost organizations for 12 months to check the average number of steps of their teams. Or they can simply do this in a manual way, you know, like people can post their number of steps and you can see how the number of steps of your employees are. The AI sentiment analysis, if you want to go crazy, if you want to do it, take it as one more step up, you can also do chatbots inside your organization that crawls through like emails or like calendars. Of course, this might be seen as a little bit too intrusive. So this is up to you to decide if you want to do this, but it's necessary to do it in an anonymous way, of course. But if you want to get inferred data compared to self-reported data, this is also crucial in terms of like taking that reporting to the next level. So those are some of the numbers that we look at when we look at well-being. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. It did. Thank you so much. I think, as you said, if you measuring is always a difficult task, no matter what kind of initiatives are we talking about when it comes to the workplace, right? Even performance, even your learning and development, even
So
what kind of
true.
experience. It's so true. But if you can put these certain metrics in place, I think that does, as you said, mood analysis, as you spoke about how AI can do that sentiment analysis, how you can talk about the physical well-being by looking at the steps your employees are taking. Are they taking care of their physical health and comparing it that to their mental health? I think taking out data points from these four points aspects that you talked about makes a lot of sense. I have a follow-up question though, Melis, on the use of AI now. I think the world is talking about generative AI and the use of AI. Anything interesting you'd like to tell us about when it comes to AI and well-being? How are these interconnected? How can AI help organizations get better at taking care of, especially their, expat employees?
Okay, there's an amazing piece of research out there by Josh Bersin on the use of AI in HR tech. Please go read it.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yes.
He's talking about all of the new areas of use in use cases in HR when it comes to AI. When it comes to well-being, though, I can easily tell you the following. Fortunately or unfortunately, however you see, I know it's AI is such a loaded word these days, and it's starting to lose its meaning even. When we started out this journey about a year ago with our data team, we thought it was so easy, you know, we would employ a data team and all of a sudden they will have the AI running and it will start. No, it doesn't work that way. Unfortunately, you need a lot of data. You need to work on your algorithms all the time. So when it comes to well-being, AI is going to start predicting you how you feel, how sick you feel, or how I would say how under the weather you feel based off of so many different angles. Like, for example, it will start to understand that you feel low when the weather is too hot and you're feeling, and then you've had maybe on that day, you've had lower than 4,000 steps, you're not feeling great. So on those days, it will start pinging you to tell you to take more steps because it will know this is your trigger to feel worse, right? So this is a very simple use case that we will have in the future. And it's already there through Well-Bees. We already do this. We give these like personalized suggestions to users, understanding their well-being. But there will be even more complex use cases. Like, for example, what I just talked to you about, the personalized suggestion, talks about your own personal data, right? What we're doing right now is trying to understand, before you understand like your own very need, you know? How can we have a look at who Jasmine looks like in the organization? And
Yeah.
can we tell her something that she hasn't tried before, but it has helped someone who looks exactly like Jasmine to try it out to see if it will change Jasmine? Because as Henry Ford said, you know, like if I were to ask people what they would need in terms of transportation, they would have told me a faster going horse car, right? So AI will come to predict to what will make you feel better
Mhm. Yeah.
on the things that you didn't know about yourself.
I know that's such a great way to look at it. And you know, while people talk about the ill effects of AI or the threats that AI is bringing, I think these are the good points and the good advantages that AI can actually bring to the forefront, and organizations must look at them. So, Melis, we spoke a lot about the state of mental well-being and overall, you know, mental well-being and overall well-being of expat employees, especially in the MENA region. How financial stress is there, how there's a lot of you know, there's a huge challenge and pressure on these employees when it comes to work-life balance. They are living life on the go. The managers are equally or more stressed, while employees look up to their managers, but their managers are also equally more stressed. So how do you kind of bring that together? How do you create a workplace which gives ample psychological safety? How do you check in on people? How do you create that inclusive culture? Very interesting points that you've shared, Melis. So thank you for that. Before we wrap up, and if there are any questions that come up, I'd like to ask you personally, what advice would you give to expat employees while we're looking at the organizational perspective and what they can create better and work on, how they can use technology, how they can use different kind of apps like Wellbees to create a better environment? What advice would you give to expat employees when it comes to taking care of their own personal well-being, be it financial, social, or overall emotional well-being?
I will come back to everything that I said. Make sure that Netflix is not your best friend. Try to connect with someone over your areas of interest if possible. Connect with family and friends if possible.
Yeah.
And if you feel like you're not earning the wage that you should, maybe you should discuss that with your HR professional if there's enough psychological safety in place. If not, we know that this is a major concern for you, so you might want to look at other options in that case. So those are the two things that I want to leave you with.
Yeah, I love that, Melis. Thank you so much. On that note, it was such a pleasure to host you, Melis. Very, very interesting insights, such actionable insights, I must say, that people can very, you know, easily apply back in their organizations and take care of their expat employees in a better way, create that culture, be inclusive, give psychological safety, take care of their social well-being, financial well-being, in whichever way you can support your employees, even the physical well-being, do those quick challenges with them, help them engage better, interact better, I think connect better. That's the way it is. Don't let them, you know, feel lonely at any point in time. That's going to be very, very important. And take care of your managers, and hence they will take care of your employees as well. I think a very, very important lesson here. So on that note, Melis, anything to end with you'd like to say before we wrap up?
Yeah, we always think that expat problems are unique to us. Expats share the same problems around the world.
Yes.
Just so you know that you're not alone. Sometimes that only in itself, that also helps to know that you're not alone. There are a lot of people out there who are doing the same thing. You're not crazy. You're sharing the same feelings that some other people are feeling. You're seen, loved, and cared for by people out there. So thank you so much for joining this call, I would say.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think for everyone will be watching this episode and are part of the audience members today, I think it's all about taking care of your own self. So, you know, you keep that mojo on. I'll say, take care, protect yourself. Don't feel lonely. Don't burn yourself out at work. I think, you know, but try and keep that balance on always. That's the way forward. So, on that note, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us for this very, very interesting conversation with Melis. There was so much to learn from her. Thank you so much. We look back forward to having you back very soon with more such interesting, insightful conversations. So once again, take care, everyone, and see you very soon. Until then, bye-bye.
Thank you, Jasmine. Bye.
Thanks, Melis. Such a pleasure. Bye-bye.